armed. As far as we know, we actually don't have the want on the vehicle at this point, but it is a white utility truck, and again, out of Ventura. And I believe that this pursuit has been going on now for quite some time, but has just gotten now into our area, which is why we're able to hear it now. But you can see CHP units really not giving this person too much room. Yeah, and the fact that there's so many units behind him leads me to believe that perhaps he was driving a little bit more recklessly earlier and has now started to slow his roll down just a touch, and that's why he's driving at the speeds that you see now, which you can see our speedometer now, not even freeway speeds, less than that, about 60 miles an hour or less. Yeah, as far as we know, just on the freeways, and really only the 101. We really haven't heard about it being on any other freeway. He had a chance to get on the 405 freeway when he passed that in the Sherman Oaks area, but he decided to proceed on the 101. And then he had a chance to hop on either the 170 or the 134 when he got here to the Hollywood split, but decided to proceed southbound on the 101. But as I said before in our last pursuit, drivers tend to return to an area that is familiar to them, so perhaps we'll see this guy try to work his way back north. But if he does that, you mentioned it, look at all that traffic on the northbound side of the 101. Yes, so as you said, Chuck, the Hollywood Bowl coming up on the right side of the screen, and then we have the Hollywood Reservoir coming up on the left. We're right next to the Hollywood sign, and so this is going to place him in to Hollywood, which I'm hoping he doesn't exit onto surface streets in Hollywood, because that is such a busy area, and to have a pursuit coming through there at this time would just be so dangerous. So hopefully he stays on the freeway or just decides to bring this all to an end and peacefully, hopefully. But it looked like he was going to exit, but he changed his mind there at the very last minute and is staying in the slow lane here on the 101 South. Thank you, Booth. Absolutely, because you don't know what this guy is capable of, and that obviously is a large utility truck. He could very much swerve right into the path of that motorcyclist, so I wouldn't be surprised if that CHP officer was making commands to the motorcycle to just pull over or let the pursuit go by and then proceed. But in this case, it looks like he's just going to take off, so that is the best thing he could do, is just get out of the way and out of this guy's way. And we do have some new information to share with you that we just got, and that is that the vehicle is a stolen, so believed to be a stolen car out of the Ventura area. I believe it's been going on for quite some time, but we just couldn't hear the Ventura County frequencies. I heard something about at least an hour, so it has been going on for quite a bit. But of course, we were preoccupied with that other pursuit that we just brought to you during the 3 o'clock hour, which ended in Long Beach at a golf course down there. And that was the recreation golf course just off of 7th Street in Long Beach. 2 people taken into custody there, but that was a stolen car. This one also a stolen car. Yeah, speeds aren't that great, but still not ideal to do a pit maneuver, because ideally you want them to go about 35 miles an hour or less. And this vehicle is slightly larger in size than your typical CHP cruiser, so I don't think they're going to try a pit maneuver, but what they could try are spike strips. And you saw that CHP unit off there to the right. Yeah, so it looks like he may be exiting. Exactly what I didn't want to happen is perhaps what's going to happen. So he may be exiting here onto surface streets in the Hollywood area. We're just off of Bronson and the 101 freeway, so he's going to make that turn here onto Hollywood Boulevard. Oh, cutting in front of that Metro bus. Oh my gosh, what a close call. That Metro bus has no idea that this guy was going to swerve right in front of him, but fortunately the speeds were slow enough where he was able to avoid a collision here on Hollywood Boulevard. Yep, running the red light there at Bronson. Yeah, lots of traffic going to be coming up, especially as he gets closer to Hollywood and Highland, where you have a lot of tourists. And so hopefully he doesn't make it that far and he turns either left or right before he gets to that very congested area. But you see the speeds here. Now we could start trying to talk about a pit maneuver. So now that option does come back into play, even though, again, it's still a larger vehicle. So with a car this size, they normally wouldn't like to do it. But considering that the speeds are slow enough, if they get a stretch of the street that's wide enough, they may be able to try it. At this point, it's unclear. I can only see the driver there. It looks like he's wearing perhaps a bright green long sleeve t-shirt there, but again, unclear how many people may be in the car, but this vehicle believed to be a stolen. There is a building that's going to come up here in the way for just a second, so I'm going to widen out so we don't lose it, but proceeding here westbound on Hollywood Boulevard. Yeah, yeah, pretty heavy. Yeah, absolutely. And we're kind of coming up to that area where I was hoping we wouldn't get to because of how busy it is. You see the stars there on the sidewalk. We're entering the Hollywood Walk of Fame, always a very busy area. But fortunately, his speeds are relatively slow. And I can bet you a lot of tourists that are here probably think that this is some sort of movie shoot coming through Hollywood. But this is real life, folks, and hopefully no one gets hurt. Yeah, so, yep, exactly. Wrong side of the road here, but again, fortunately, slow speeds, and he's just coming through the intersection now. So we're at Hollywood and Cahuenga. You see that there's really not much room for those officers to try a pit. There's too many parked cars, and then, of course, you can have lots of pedestrians standing on either side of the street. Fortunately, though, the speeds are slow enough. Hopefully, they can just get this guy out of this area and to a less congested area, and then they can start to think about their options. Yeah, I don't think I've ever had a pursuit end there. We've had pursuits pass through there, and I can tell you everyone's out with their camera phone in those cases because they just can't believe what is going by. So in this case, I think we're definitely going to come up to that area unless he makes a turn here in the next few seconds. But we're Hollywood Boulevard at Cherokee, and this may actually be my chance to check inside. I want to see if there's a passenger. But I'm not seeing anyone in the. Actually, no. I do think I see a sweater. Although it's hard to tell if that's the seat or the sweater, but yeah, if it's a passenger, I would venture to say that it's probably not. I'm gonna say that there isn't a passenger and it's just the driver, at least in the front part of the vehicle. Yeah, here we are. We're gonna pass by a lot of major landmarks. So Hollywood and Highland right here, the intersection coming up. We had 8 earlier when we were on the freeway, so let me check now. Yeah, it looks like we have about 6. So you see it there, folks, the El Capitan on one side. We've got the Dolby Theater on the other, Grauman's Chinese Theater coming up, Hollywood Walk of Fame. We're literally one of the busiest areas in our area that you could drive through, and this is where a pursuit is happening right now of a stolen car with the CHP in pursuit. Yeah, you even have one person out there in the street. Yeah, yeah, really slowing down. It almost looks like he's stopping to just kind of look at folks or perhaps trying to communicate with them. I see his head pointed in that direction, but just slow rolling here through Hollywood Boulevard and Orange. It almost seemed like he was to me. It looked like he was. Let me go in my doubler and we'll be able to take a closer look. But he definitely does have a lean towards him, leaning in the direction of the passenger side there for just a moment as he passed several of the folks that were standing out on the sidewalk. Yeah, you would think it's some sort of movie shoot. This is not something that you would typically see. But he's getting out of that busier area and moving to the west of that now. Hollywood Boulevard, we're west of Orange, and it looks like he's going to stay on Hollywood, and he's got the red here, so let's see what he does. He's driving right through it. Yep. And at slow speed, so it actually gives the officers behind him plenty of time to clear the intersection, because one thing is, when these guys run these red lights, those officers are right behind them and they're forced to run the reds as well. So the officer's going to try to clear the intersection the best that they can, but unfortunately there's times when they are involved in collisions as a result. And speaking of collisions, as far as we know, there have been no accidents as a result of this pursuit, despite how far it has traveled all the way from Ventura here to Hollywood. It almost did, yeah. Absolutely. And if they could just figure out his pattern, and in this case, I would venture to say he's probably going to stay on Hollywood Boulevard. So it would be wise for the officers to just go up ahead a few blocks, lay down the spike strip, and then hopefully he'll pass right over it. But sometimes when drivers are going this slow, it gives them a chance to dodge it because they can clearly see it coming up. So we'll see what happens here in the next few minutes as he continues west on Hollywood Boulevard. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, and Sarah was just reminding me that Hollywood Boulevard actually dead ends coming up. So we'll see what he does when he gets to that point, if he makes either a north or southbound turn. But this is purely residential area now. Yeah, Sunset, Santa Monica, lots of other majors here in the area that he could take instead. But continuing here, Hollywood Boulevard at Martel, still at slow speeds. And what I'm starting to think about is what his gas situation is, because as far as we understand, this pursuit has been going on now for quite some time. So unless he had a full tank, perhaps he's starting to run out of gas, and that's why we're seeing him drop his speed so significantly. Yeah, that was probably the closest call that we've seen. Yeah, just a touch here, about 30 miles an hour around that speed. And again, this is just residential. As I widen out the shot, you're going to see homes and apartments on either side of the street. There's another Metro bus coming up right now. And again, he had that very close call when he exited the 101 freeway at Hollywood Boulevard with a Metro bus. But again, as far as we know, no collisions as a result of this pursuit. And even though the speeds were significantly higher earlier, we have not heard about any other close calls besides that one. But continuing here, westbound on Hollywood Boulevard, we're going to be in West Hollywood here coming up soon. Yeah, he may not be. Yeah, we are. So we're right now Hollywood at Fairfax. So Fairfax is another major here. And so let's see if he makes this turn. He might. Yep, sure enough. So he's going to make that southbound turn onto Fairfax. So now that really opens up his options because he'll have a lot of major cross streets coming up. But that also means a lot of traffic coming up as well. His speeds, though, roughly 20 to 30 miles an hour here on southbound Fairfax. They could, yeah, yeah, making another turn, yeah. So making that turn on a Sunset. So in terms of the pit maneuver, all of these units are pit equipped, and I should actually mention those units, if you look at them there, it's LAPD. So what happened there in the last few minutes is they essentially figured out this guy's staying in our area, he's staying in Hollywood, so let's get some LAPD Hollywood division units behind him. Now the thought process behind that is those officers, they're going to know where every dead end is, every parking structure, and they're going to be best equipped to follow this pursuit that is now, oh, there we go, spike strips coming up, let's see if we can dodge him. sure enough, he just did. Right there, Sunset at Genesee, he was able to dodge that set of spike strips and continuing eastbound here on Sunset. Yeah, it looks... Go ahead, Carolyn. Yeah, it looks like one hand is fully out of the car, the other, and there's the other one. So that's exactly what we were waiting to see. And so what's going to happen next is they're going to ask him to throw the keys out of the window to make sure that he can't take off, and just in case he changes his mind, because this was literally out of his own will. He came to a stop right after he dodged that set of spike strips. He just stopped here eastbound lanes of Sunset Boulevard, just a little east of Genesee. And now this is when the LAPD can really slow things down and when they feel ready, when they have enough units on scene, they can start to make call-outs to the car, get that driver out, and then once they have him in custody, they can start to make call-outs for anybody else who may be in the vehicle. Yeah, so you have all of those vehicles that are westbound on Sunset. So I'm actually going to ask Saro if you could scoot back just a little bit so we don't get too steep on it. But the officers are going to wait till those cars clear out. And once they clear out, they will essentially shut down the street until they can take this individual into custody. We don't know that he is armed, but they have to treat him as if he is, just out of an abundance of caution. But there you go. He is doing exactly what he is being commanded to do by the LAPD's Hollywood Division officers. His hands are up in the air. They may ask him to raise his shirt so that they can see his waistband and make sure that there's nothing on his person that could possibly harm them. And once they feel comfortable, they will have him walk back in their direction and take him into custody. And once he is in custody, again, they will make call-outs to the car in case there is anybody else in the vehicle. Again, we never heard how many people were in the vehicle, so there's always the possibility that there could be additional individuals. But at this point, what we can see now is a male driver out of the car and about to be arrested by the LAPD. Yes, so what we'll see the officers do is they'll approach him and handcuff him, and then you'll see another team of officers assemble and then approach the car. And just to clear it, they'll even check the back compartment just in case somebody is hiding back there, because that sometimes happens. And then there's also times when there's people in the car who simply don't know to get out. For example, if there's a child in the car, they just wouldn't know to get out of the vehicle. So we've seen that happen, unfortunately, time and time again. So the officers will approach very gently, and they'll figure out if anybody else is in fact still in the vehicle. Yeah, that's very rare for that car, and that actually looks like a civilian vehicle. So that could have been somebody who was just waiting in traffic, and they thought they could get by, but may just want to be taking a peek there as the officers continue to take this individual into custody. But I think they're regretting their choice right now, so they are trying to reverse out of the way. So let the officers do their work, folks, as they approach here and attempt to take this individual into custody. And as far as we can tell, he is completely complying. So they are going to handcuff him and take him back to a squad car where they're going to search his person a little bit more thoroughly just to make sure that he has no weapons on him. And then I believe that they already cleared the car. You see the passenger side door there open, but I do see one officer trying to search the back just to make sure nobody is hiding in that compartment. But once they clear all that, they will be able to move the vehicle out of the way and call it a day here in Hollywood. clear. Thank you.